Songwriting is better than composition. Now, before you jump at the comments and lose it on me, let me just explain. Even though I grew up in Nashville, surrounded by songwriters, I'm actually kind of coming from the composition side of things. I actually studied music theory and composition in undergrad, and then I went on to earn a master's in music composition. So this is the world I come from, but I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying that because my take on this is a little different. Before I get into that, my name is Chris, and I make videos to help songwriters become better composers and arrangers of their own music. And we also talk about music tech, music engraving, and all sorts of music-related topics here on the channel. Now, before we get into today's topic, I do want to give you something. Years ago, I made a PowerPoint presentation, which was part of a course called Essentials of Music for Songwriters. And the idea behind it was going to be, it was a kind of a prep class for this other course, which I called Composition for Songwriters. Even though the composition class didn't force students to learn music notation, the idea was to give them a foundation for super basic concepts like pitch, rhythm and meter, major versus minor chords, and so on. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the entire Essentials of Music course. I actually had other videos and materials planned, so comment on this video, subscribe to the channel. These will tell me that you want more content like this. If you'd like a free copy of that PDF, the entire course for the PDF, or the entire PDF for the course, I should say, is in the description below. Now, I'm not here to bash composers or rant about academia, but I do want to share something that I've noticed. Something that I think songwriters have that many composers, myself included, often don't. And that thing is joy. The kind of thing that feels like, when you're making music as a kid, the playfulness of it. It's a little messy and you don't care if it's good. You just write. And in the world of classical composition, especially inside universities, we're trained to take music very seriously. We study perfect pieces. We analyze them to death. We admire them for their structural integrity, their elegance, their logic. And that's good. But if you're like me, and you studied all this stuff, and you might struggle with perfectionism as I do, and self-imposed pressure, then all that elegance starts to feel a little paralyzing. Somewhere along the way, I started thinking that composing wasn't about experimenting anymore. It was about getting it right. And that's where I think songwriters have something really special. Songwriters aren't afraid to just throw something down, to sing nonsense into their voice memos app, to record a 30-second sketch and see what sticks. It's playful, it's immediate, it's creative in a way that feels natural, not overthought. And when I do give myself permission to work like that, when I improvise or stop worrying about structure, I usually end up writing better music anyway. Actually, I'm reminding myself right now of some composers that I've encountered in academia who were joyful in this way. For example, I was once in a composition seminar with Jennifer Higdon. And if you don't know who she is, she's this amazing 3-time Grammy and Pulitzer-winning composer. And, keep in mind, she's one of these incredible people who makes all of her income composing concert music, which is super rare. And she composes for 6 hours a day. One thing I remember from this seminar is that Higdon mentioned that in all of those 6 hours a day of composing, she never once thinks about what key she's in at any given time. And I've always remembered this because it was super refreshing to hear. Like she's just writing, making music without worrying what key she's in, or probably any other super esoteric, super music-y things that we in academia feel like we should be thinking about at all times. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to experiment with songwriting, even though I've always leaned more composer than songwriter, because I feel like I need to reconnect with my non-elitist, super joyful experimental side. But I'm going to do it in a weird way. I'm going to try using the tools I already know, like notation tools like Dorico, for example, to see what songwriting might look like for someone like me using those tools. Now, Dorico, by the way, has some features that I think would be really cool for songwriters to learn, and I'll be sharing those in upcoming videos. Now, I do love software, and yes, I've made lots of videos about tips and tricks, but I guess I don't want this to just be another tips and tricks channel. I want to actually make music, share it, see what comes of it. So here's the plan. I'm going to write songs using Dorico, and instead of exporting MIDI and just jumping straight into Cubase, I'm going to print the music out and record raw performances into Reaper. Why Reaper? I like the idea of separating the recording from the writing, and Reaper's just the DAW that I've been using lately. And I still love Cubase, Studio One, and Logic, but here's the thing. I want to separate the two from each other, and Cubase and Dorico have this connection that is often good, but this system will keep me from endlessly tweaking MIDI or being tempted to use some of the platform's natural connections to keep writing more in Cubase, if that makes sense. So using this method, the score gets written, and then there's a clean break between writing and recording. Now, you might be asking, Chris, does this mean you will reject any creative ideas that come while you're in the recording part of the process? And to that, I would say absolutely not. The point is not to be rigid. The point is to try and capture the magic that happens when you spend all of that time writing something in notation and then you hear it performed in real life for the first time. The mistakes, the hesitations, like all of those things come out when you're performing for the first time or when you're performing any time. And I like the idea of capturing those in the recording. I just don't want to be tempted to use Cubase and Dorico's natural compatibility as a crutch. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Cubase, and I've been using it since version 5, but there's something really freeing about switching platforms completely and letting each tool do its thing. Dorico for writing, Reaper for recording, and so there's no round tripping, there's no endlessly tweaking MIDI data. You just finish the piece and you move on. And honestly, I think a lot of songwriters would benefit from the written score side of this process. Like, imagine having a printed score of your own song. And I don't mean a super dense, large score, and no shame if you're into that kind of thing, but it could be like a chord chart or a piano vocal score. It could be more complex. But the point is, you have a blueprint for your song, and you could offer it to fans, bandmates, or just archive it for yourself. Okay, here's another problem. I'm not a mix engineer, but I've been reading a lot more about mixing, especially minimal, top-down approaches like those covered in Björkvin Benediktson's book, Mixing with 5 Plugins. It reminds me of those old Recording Revolution videos from back in the day, where Graham Cochran would, use that same top-down mixing approach to mix his songs. It's super practical, it's super doable, and that's the vibe I'm going for here. Simple tools, creative output, less overthinking, more finished products, even if they're bad. And the idea is that quantity will eventually result in quality. And I won't know what I can do unless I make a lot and just get over myself. So yeah, we'll talk about software, but it's going to be more about how we can use the software to make stuff. So if that sounds like something that you're into, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. Does any of this resonate with you? Are you more of a composer trying to get out of your rut, or are you a songwriter looking to go deeper? Again, if you'd like that PDF, Essentials of Music for Songwriters, click the link below in the description, and we'll see you in the next one.